Welcome, survivors, seekers, and thrivers. I'm your host, Shari Lee Roberts, psychic medium, energy healer, and living proof that you can transform your pain into power. Each episode, we dive into trauma healing, developing your intuitive gifts, and reclaiming your life. Get ready for real stories, deep wisdom, and a little laughter along the way.
I absolutely love being a podcast host because I get the privilege of talking with amazing guests. And today is no different. I have Dr. Albert Bramante with me. His doctorate is in psychology. He has done a host of things. He is certified in hypnosis. His intuitive gifts are developed. Mindset coach, blah, 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 blah. Go on and on and on. But today, his spirit team is leading us to talk about soul connections. Welcome, Albert. Thank you for being here and your willingness to share.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on here, Sherry, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to have this discussion with you. It's something that I feel kind of passion to discuss, because it's something that I kind of discovered later in life, when I was really as an adult, that, there's such thing as soul connections, soul contracts, soul alignment, and whatever you want to call that. And I like the life that I have now, where I can kind of blend both the spirituality and the science too. Like, because coming from a science background as a psychologist, studying psychology, a PhD, and all that. So to be able to bridge the two together is amazing. So um, one of the certifications in hypnosis that I have is what we call transpersonal hypnotherapy, which is
Hold on. Say that again.
So I have one of my certifications in hypnosis and hypnotherapy is transpersonal hypnotherapy, which
Oh,
is kind of
okay.
embracing the idea of what you might call like a higher self or superconscious, and how that can integrate into our normal day to day function. So what that would look like, because again, some people have different viewpoints, which I totally respect and honor. But that would just be like getting in touch with like your body's wisdom, the wisdom of something that's beyond your body, but also still a part of you. If that makes sense. So it's still a part of us, but yet it might not be necessarily in our body. So it's what we call, in some circles we'll call it like the higher self.
Yeah.
So communicating with your higher self in a sense, because your higher self has all the wisdom and intuition that you need. And that's something I've always believed in, that we have really all the answers that we need. Sometimes what might happen is we lose track of how to get in touch with that, or get in touch with that side of us, that really connects to that deeper meaning and really has all that wisdom. Through day to day things, we just kind of get lost in that where we're not in touch with all the essence or all the wisdom that we really inherently have because we not just collect our own experiences, but we also share collectively as as a human race in a sense of group consciousness as well.
Yes. So take us back to that moment where you said or realized, wow, there is so much more to reality, to life, to my life than I knew. What was the situation? How old were you? And where were you?
So the first inkling might have been, and a lot of times I'm looking at a lot of this in retrospect, which means that I
Yeah.
don't might not have realized at the moment. When I was 7, I went. We had a family relative who had passed, and we went to the funeral. And and I don't remember this, of course, that much. It's hazy, but from what I was told, my parents were like kind of coaching me and coaxing me, like that I'm going to see an open casket, a dead body of somebody who I knew, like had interactions with, and just to kind of prep. And so I walked in, I walked up to the casket, knelt down, and I turned to my parents and smiled and said, I pointed to him and I said, he's in heaven.
Yeah.
Now, his widow and his daughter were, obviously in the middle of their grief. They were crying, and sitting in
Yeah.
the front. That got them to calm down.
Wow. Yes.
Now, I don't remember how or why that just came to me.
Yeah.
So that that gave them a lot of comfort. Even like, 30 something years, 40 something years later, I'm still being told that story, like how it brought them comfort.
Yeah.
And that I couldn't explain to you how I came to that or why I came to that. It was just I felt like it was a mess, like it came through me. Not I didn't
Yeah.
originate it. It came. That's the conclusion I made. I can make.
Beyond. Yeah. Spirit channeled it through you. Then,
Yeah, and then
yeah.
well, I was going to say another experience I had. Again, looking in retrospect, when I was 14, my grandmother had passed away. Relatively short illness, so it was very sudden for me, at least. And we were going through her things like the next day or two to kind of clean up her house um, and going through whatever odds and ends. And I don't remember doing this, but I went into her drawer and took out her wedding ring, and I put it in my pocket. I don't remember doing this, and I remember coming home. This is again stories I was told. I do remember now coming home, finding it in my pocket, not knowing how it got there.
Wow.
And I was so apologetic to my family, and it turns out that my grandmother and my mother, this is my father's side, so her daughter, my grandmother and her daughter-in-law, my mom, um, had a discussion 3 or 4 months before her death that if anything should happen, she should get her wedding ring. So I don't know what prompted me to go into the draw. So and only the only thing I can conclude was that my grandmother's spirit that was drawing me to make sure I did that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I look at that And these are kind of like pivotal moments in my life. It really didn't happen until many years later that something beyond may be going on here. That something, maybe that's beyond my conscious knowing or conscious explanation is happening. That there's that possibility that, there's another realm, there's another dimension that right now I may not have conscious access to. So, but it's there. So that wasn't until I went to college, and I was always interested, even as a child growing up, into very deep topics: the
Yeah.
meaning of life, um, the end of life, death, and it kind of was a bit off-putting for my family, a little bit
Yeah. It
like
was.
like what's wrong with it? What's
Yeah.
wrong
It
with
was.
that kid? What's wrong with this
Yeah.
guy? Is
Yeah.
something up? So I kind of suppressed it because of that. I was just like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna talk. 'Cause I was told so many times, like, we don't talk about that. And
Yeah.
so now when I was 30, I had a very my first real life experience of what you might call a soul connection. So when I was in 30, I was in my PhD program. I was studying to be a clinical psychologist, and that was like my goal at the time. Was I was going to be a clinical psychologist, and I was going to have a practice and do research and teach. So I'm in a doctoral program that was online. That's online, and it required all PhD students in every discipline to have face to face time at a conference, a 2 week conference during the
Oh.
summer. This was during the summer. When I was 30, and we all had to go for 2 weeks into Minneapolis, Minnesota, for a residency. And at that time, this is going to date myself, but this is when MySpace was popular, the site MySpace. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
I
Really
know.
dating.
Yeah. I
So,
know.
for those of you who aren't listening, MySpace was like the prior Facebook before it came being popular. It was like the old Facebook. So, MySpace created a community for people that were going into this residency. And the community was like equivalent to a Facebook group today. So
Yeah.
they created this community just for all of us to kind of like network, get to know one another, ask questions, and so I started talking to this lady. Now I'm in New Jersey, New York, and was in California, and different professions. I was going for psychology. She was going to become a administrator, principal superintendent. So she was going for a doctorate in educational supervision and administration. So we started chatting like daily, just on the computer. And I was going there for 2 weeks. She was only there for 1 week. So she was going to be there the second week that I was there. So I started giving her like tips the week before. This is where this is what you should do, and all of that. So we made plans to meet up. Now, when we did meet up, it was the first time that we met was by accident. Like, when I say by accident, it was in passing.
Yeah.
When we met in passing, it wasn't like, "Hi, are you so and so?" It was like we just met and started talking like we were old friends.
Uh,
And
nice.
one thing I noticed when I was having this communication with her, and I was talking to her for like we were talking like 20 minutes. I kept noticing, and I even said this, to her afterwards. I said, "You have a very angelic presence."
Mm.
And the one thing I was like, I've never felt like so connected to somebody ever in my life in those 20 minutes. And I remember her talking to her, and every time she would smile, like it was a genuine smile that actually made me more euphoric inside. I can't even explain that in other terms except feeling euphoria. Every time she would smile,
Wow.
it was
Wow.
so bright and angelic.
Yeah.
And I walked away. I was like, I can't explain that. Even so. The next day, there's a group of us. We go out to dinner, and I'm sitting next to her, and at that time, I had again, this is going to date me. I had one of those cameras that were not on the phone. It was a
Yeah.
disposable camera. You actually had to go get developed so it could
Yeah.
split. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and at that time, because there wasn't selfies at the time, I rarely had any pictures of me. I didn't really like taking pictures, but I turned to her and I said, before we leave, I love for us to take a picture together,
Yeah.
and we did. And I remember walking away, even going back to the settlement for the night, thinking to myself, what was I thinking? Why would I ask for a picture? I was like kind of like beating myself up, like that was foolish.
Oh. Oh.
But so and it makes sense later now, obviously. So a couple days later, we're back. We didn't really get to meet up at all throughout the rest of the trip. So in the air, we're sitting in the Minneapolis airport. Now we're on different terminals, so we're texting each other because we can't. There's no way for us to physically see each other. And we're like, making plans because I was supposed to come out to California for a conference the next 2 weeks, and we had agreed to meet up there. She was going to give me like a tour and all that. So we just started talking, and then when I got home, we connected. It was almost like Texas when we get in. We got in, we got safe, and we just started having this deep conversations, her and I, like 2-3 hours a day. And at the end of every call, we would say, "I love you," to each other. And it didn't feel weird. It just felt so natural to say that. And we would text each other, every morning, "Good morning, I love you, have a great day, good night," and we did this for about, 6-7 days. And then the last day, and I'm saying the last day because I'm preface where I'm going to get to here, we had a 2 or 3 hour conversation. She really kind of like let out everything. We had a deep heart to heart discussion about situations of life, hardships that she went through, hardships I went through. And her last email to me was like, "Do you think I'm a good person?" I said, "Absolutely." So I go to a conference. I went to a local thing, a conference in the weekend in New York City. So she wished me luck for the conference, and I didn't hear from her. I didn't think anything of it. I was busy with the conference. I knew she was to visit family. So in my head, I said, "We'll reconnect when the weekend's over." So the next day, the next morning, I wake up. I get no text, but I didn't think anything of it, and she was just busy, probably. So I come home. This is a Saturday night. I remember this, explicitly. I open up MySpace and I see a message, "Important, call me now," from somebody I don't even know. Okay, so they know my name. So they gave me her. They gave a number. So I called them up, and she started asking me, "Do you know, Mary, which is her name?" I said, "Yeah." When did you speak to her last? I said, "Thursday night. 2 nights ago." She sounded perfect. Well, apparently she died suddenly. She was
No.
having she was
No.
apparently having um walking with her family. She said something that made her laugh. When she laughed, she just keeled over and they couldn't revive her. She just passed out and never came to. And so I remember sitting there just frozen, solid, when her friend was talking to me and even crying to me like she's my best friend. I couldn't even comfort her friend because I was numb and shocked.
Yes. Yes.
I I couldn't. My mouth, really. I couldn't process anything. So when the call, I hung up the phone. I was just silent. I was like numb the entire night. I go to bed. Go to sleep. I wake up in the morning. I find myself in a fetal position, hysterically crying. I mean, I woke up to myself crying.
Yeah.
I mean, cathartic, heavily cathartic cry, and I couldn't explain it. I could not. And even when was telling people like, "Oh, I love," a friend of mine who died, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and I'm like in my head, I'm like, "But you don't understand,"
Yeah.
and even I couldn't consciously understand it for a while. Like, I only knew somebody less than a month. Why was I having such a profound
Right.
reaction to loss, like a grief, full on traumatic grief reaction? Why was this happening? I'm using my clinical terms now. Why was this happening? Um, because I've lost family members and I didn't really react like the way I was reacting now. And for like 2 or 3 months, like, all you had to do was say her name or just the thought would pop in my head and I would get emotional. I couldn't explain it.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks later, her kids reached out to me and said, I just want to let you know, my mom talked about you all the time. And her friend then called me up, the one who called me to tell me the news. We spoke a few weeks later. She said, I just want to let you know, you were number one on her contact list on the phone. That's why we reached out to you. You know, she wouldn't stop talking about you. And that, of course, that made me feel good, but also emotional at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I posted a tribute to her on a like grief message board. Like I forget the site or everything. A few months later, I get an email from another woman saying, thanking me for posting that because she happened to just saw that, and so we were talking. That was her ex sister. That was her sister in law who was estranged from her family because of my post. She now was able to reach out to the children that were left and have a relationship with her niece and nephew.
Yeah. Nice.
So that kind of started getting me my wheels turning because I was kind of going through a selfish narrative like, why did this happen to me? Why would you introduce, the universe? Why would you introduce me to somebody and then rip them, apart from me like that?
Yep.
And that was a selfish thing, of course. But I look now in hindsight, and it was designed, I think, to get me to first of all understand what a soul connection is, because that's the only way I can explain the deep connection that I felt with her and why I felt such a profound loss, because it was part of my soul family, and so that was a
Yeah.
spiritual and soul loss I was experiencing,
Yes.
and so and then also like because I kept thinking, well, why would this happen? And I had another medium, spiritual medium, who kind of said to me that it may not have been anything about me. Maybe I was there to help her
Yeah.
transition. And now it makes sense that maybe the angelic smile that I was seeing was because she was on her way out of, like she was ready to
Yeah.
depart.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I could think of, and so there's the questions, but I feel, like generally drawn. So that's the long-winded answer of what initiated me to kind of like start looking into this area.
Well, I thank you for sharing that. And I love how you came to realize it
Hmm.
wasn't really about you, it was about her needing you. And that's why you two came together. Oh my gosh. That is the key in a higher understanding of things. It is so difficult to snap out of or move from. Why me? God, why would you bring them to me, then take them? And I get that. I have that. I have been there. Wow. Poignantly said. When you realized that, oh wow, it was about helping her, on her journey, giving her what she needed. But you also did get things too that your soul needed, that unconditional love and understanding. Where did you go from there?
So that kind of led me to when I first, started looking into hypnosis and hypnotherapy. I became interested in past life regression or past life work,
Okay.
and so because I kind of believe, well, I still not, I kind of know that me and this person probably most likely have been connected in other lifetimes.
Okay. Can you stop
Sure.
and explain to my listeners who may not know about reincarnation and past lives? And I totally agree with what you're saying. The path that you're going down, I see it
Hmm.
vividly.
Yeah. So it the idea here, and again, for people that go down that path, the belief that we come back, several times to earthly plane, from the spiritual plane, to learn lessons, to learn
Yeah.
insights, to develop our gifts, and that we're only here temporarily. That we have a home that we go to. We're only here visiting temporarily, and sometimes we need to keep learning some repeat lessons. So that's why the soul will incarnate into a lifetime,
Yep.
several times. And most of us lived several lifetimes. Some of us, I also believe, that the more spiritually evolved we are, this may be towards our last, you know,
Yeah.
incarnation that we really need. So,
Yeah.
and so we go home, and this is, and we repeat this time, and we sometimes travel in the same circles spiritually. So there's a good chance that the people that you're connected to in your life now aren't just from this lifetime alone. Now they may play different roles and different, people now in each lifetime. Like for example, the people that your parents now could have been your children in the past life. They could have been other family members in your past life. So depends upon the context, whatever lessons you need to learn, that we travel together in different roles. And that means, yeah, it could mean that we're different genders, that could, and
Yep.
that we could be male, male in one lifetime, female in another, and also sometimes even good or bad people. Like, we could be perpetrators in certain lifetimes. All of us have been, perpetrators and also good people, and
Yes. Yep.
so it's because at that time we come up again, if you believe this, we come up with an idea, before reincarnating about what we need to learn in each lifetime, what lessons, what obstacles, and all that, and then we set out that path. And so I am going through my own work, and so it wasn't really till this experience, that I just talked about in detail, that maybe there's something more here between me and her, that we had a past life connection that could explain the instant connection, that could explain why we were instantly drawn to one another, that could explain why, again, why I just felt that deep connection, because we were connected, maybe just not in this specific lifetime, like, and it was a wake up call for me. So that was the lesson that I needed to pursue, because again, I was going to be purely clinical psychologist. My goal was to have a practice. My goal was to be a research, psychologist, teach at a university, which I still somewhat do. I still am a professor. I still, have a doctorate in psychology, but not exactly that path. And I believe that experience kind of led me down the path I'm at now. So and I wanted to explore this further. So that's why I started looking into like past life work, past life regression. And in 2010, I took a 3 day and then a basic and 3 day advanced past life regression course.
Ah,
Now, that is a form, that actually requires hypnotherapy to kind of do that. That's what that entails.
yeah.
So I figured like I might as well get certified in hypnotherapy. Because at that time, I really didn't know I was going to be a hypnotherapist or hypnosis. I really didn't know that. At the time, I was still wrestling with the being a clinical psychologist. So I said, you know what? If I'm going to really be doing past life regression work, I should have a foundation in hypnotherapy in general. So that's when I
Ah,
enrolled in the transversal hypnotherapy program.
okay.
And and then I took other classes here and there, and so that kind of like solidified my notion of like soul contracts and soul connections. So what is now?
But how did it? Because I did hypnotherapy, quantum hypnotherapy, and just hypnotherapy never made the connection between myself and higher self. It did connect me to my inner child,
Hmm.
but is the inner child our higher self? I don't think so,
Yeah,
but
I think it's related. I think it's starting that process, but our inner child is just really this lifetime and this, previous. And now you could make that argument that you need to connect with that first before you can do any other type of work. So that's why a lot of hypnotherapists will do inner child work. Now, also, keep in mind that not every hypnotherapist is going to be spiritually based,
right.
and it depends on like who you went to and who what modality to subscribe to. Like even for myself, like if somebody was going through an issue, they may not be spiritually based. So I'm not gonna introduce a higher self and spirit and higher consciousness until they're
Yeah,
ready. So I
yeah,
might do inner child work to connect them to heal them in this lifetime now because they may not be ready or necessary. And for me, I had to come to it when I was ready, and that's where everybody else I feel should, because otherwise,
yes,
if you become, I also don't want to be pushy either, because I also grew up with a lot of people that were heavily religious, and the one thing that really makes me uncomfortable is when people impose their beliefs onto others, or like demand that everybody
yes,
must believe a certain way.
yes. I cannot stand that hypocrisy. And as we evolve spiritually, we come to know that a lot of what the religious people are saying, spouting, believing is untrue, is
Hmm.
just shit. So, excellent point. Thank you for saying it. He put go in.
Yes. So that, in a sense, it's all about, meeting people where they're at too,
Yeah.
and respecting where they're at too, and their beliefs, and that's so important because, as you said, it is hypocrisy. Because on one hand, you're telling me that you have unconditional love, but then you're judging me because I may not have the same viewpoint that you have, and so that I couldn't understand, and that's sort of like why I went away from traditional religion because
Yep.
of that capacity.
Yep.
So that is sort of like where I stand. So I, like I said, going back to what we were saying before with hypnotherapy, a lot of it could just be healing what you have at the moment. And even when I was like with my past life regression work, a lot of times you may be blocked to even reaching that dimension until you kind of heal whatever's going on right now in your life.
Yeah.
So, because I remember one time I was trying to work, do a regression on somebody, and what kept coming up was him being abused as a child.
Oh.
And at that time, I really wasn't equipped to deal with that, so we kind of had to, you know, I had to count him up and kind of end that regression because what that was telling me is like, look, that has to be healed first before we can access anything else. So that's where I believe inner child is not necessarily a spirit, but it's a way to get there. So I said it's a way to do that. It's not. I don't believe that that's exactly your higher self, but I do believe to access your higher self, your inner child needs to be healed to some level, or at least
Yeah.
acknowledged,
Yeah.
and then you can get to the next part of the journey. So, and this is why I because a lot of people when they hear that I do past life regression are interested and excited by that. But I kind of look at it like this is not a thing to play with, a tool to like a parlor trick. It's not like that. It can actually be quite jarring sometimes,
Yeah.
initially.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to do that for fun if I don't, especially if I don't really know or know someone and say, hey, let's spontaneously feel past life because it's bringing up trauma. It can
Um,
it can bring up trauma. So that's why like unless somebody's really knows to do the work, can do the work, that it's not something to be played with. So that's why I really want to get certified in hypnotherapy and even with some type of trauma work because again, you might be dealing with that. And whether a trauma manifests itself in this lifetime or another lifetime, it's still a trauma.
okay. Great. And yeah, uh, regardless of what kind of trauma someone is dealing with, past life, generational, conscious, subconscious, secondary. There is energy created from that. And identifying the energy, the source, how is manifesting in order to remove it is the key. And what I love about you is that you have connected science with spirit and you're getting there on how to help people. Also, you talked early on about helping people through limiting beliefs. And I am all about that, of course, with my voice. So, sadly, we are almost at the hour. Thank you for being here. But before we go, would you share words of wisdom to people who are thinking of healing but are afraid or are confused about religion and spirituality? What would you tell them?
Well, the one thing I would tell them is, first of all, it's a part of you, and to do things that are on your terms and not by somebody else. Like, again, this is where it comes to exploring your own beliefs, because at the end of the day, you do you, in a sense. You do what you need to do. And what that looks like may be different for everybody else and maybe not traditional. So do what you need to do, but do understand that there's a life that's really great. And if you're going through things right now, it will get better. It will get, easier. Just connect to other people. That's the biggest thing too. Is as hard as I know it's difficult sometimes, but the important thing is connect with others, connect with those other people, other groups, and and this is why like the internet is so great. And with that, social media, connect with people that are like you, and you don't have to do this alone. Whatever you know, and you have people around you. Again, even if going back to my spirituality, even people that may not be physically here in Earth form, you have other people that are here. That have your back. So my final kind of words is, whatever you're going through, you got this.
And don't do it alone. You're not alone. Yeah, someone near you or your spirit team always has you. You can do it. You chose to be here to experience things and to learn. So just accept and go with it helps tremendously. So, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how can they?
So you can go to my website, albertbramante.com. I also have I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, so you can direct message me. And I did send that to you, in the form. So
Yeah.
that's there. So feel free to reach out to me, send me a message. I'd be happy to jump on a call and we can talk.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you for listening. If today's conversation resonated with you and you're ready to explore your own healing journey or intuitive gifts, I'd love to work with you. I offer psychic medium readings, energy healing sessions, and intuitive development guidance at shariroberts.org. And if you're not quite ready for a session, but want to be a part of the conversation in a supportive community, join my private Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. This is Shari Lee Roberts. Until next time, remember, you're never alone.